Welcome back to my channel, beautiful humans. My name is Meredith, and today on my channel we are going to work on making some Lucet cord. This particular pattern is a fun two-tone, which is going to use some embroidery floss and size 10 crochet cotton. And these are going to get braided together with a Lucet cord. Now, there's some debate on when these come into use. I will link a couple articles about that down below, but I'm not an expert in any of those time periods. I just really want a pretty two-tone lace to lace up my dress. The big reason I'm going to have us include a piece of embroidery floss in with that size 10 crochet cotton is it's going to add a little bit of extra strength. I've been working through a lot of old stash balls of this size 10 crochet cotton, and some of it has a better staple strength than others just based on the age. Laces for me tend to be a little bit disposable, so if it snaps eventually, that's fine, but for right now I do need it to hold my dress together. We're going to start this particular Lucet cord by making a slip knot, my preferred way to start them honestly, and sliding that onto my fork and wrapping the string around to create sort of an S shape. You're going to take the bottom loop from that S and pull it up over the top on the same side. You're not going to do anything weird and crossways or anything for this braid. We're just doing a simple box plaited Lucet cord. So do that same over loop with the other side and keep going back and forth. When you're getting started, sometimes you really need to hold on to that end to keep tension on the cord, and it makes it a little bit easier. So we need to keep doing this particular stitch for a few, and once we've got a couple stitches in, we're going to just lay this embroidery floss over the top and continue working this braid around that. So I like to do even duplicates of this. On one cord I did a 2-2 variation where it was 2 over and 2 under as far as me weaving that piece of embroidery floss back and forth. I've also decided I really like 4-4, but when I moved it up to doing 6 stitches between moving the embroidery floss back and forth, it became just a little bit too much of a floating thread and started to cause issues all on its own where it was getting snagged on something. So I hope me chatting away while you get to watch my fingers do this has given you a chance to see a little bit more clearly what we're trying to get at with making these stitches and then weaving this piece of embroidery floss back and forth. I'm also not splitting that embroidery floss. I do want the full normal size of it to help keep giving it that strength. Another thing to try and be mindful of when you're working on some of these braids, especially when the braid is first starting, sometimes that tail might try to get away from you and flip up on itself. Try to avoid that, otherwise you're going to find the yarn doesn't pass through the loops on those forks as easily. You might end up having to cut the whole thing off and start over. Just kind of depends on your tension. Speaking of tension, we really need to be mindful of it when we're doing this braid. So 2 common things I have seen myself do when I'm practicing this one. On one hand, if I am too lax with the dark blue embroidery floss going through here, I can almost get a blue clay yarn effect where it's kind of loopy and bumpy on one side or the other. On the other extreme end of this, if I am pulling my embroidery floss too tight as I weave through this, it's going to start to get a really weird wave effect. Kind of reminds me of waffle stick from school breakfasts when I was in elementary, high school, all of that sort of thing. So if you have done this braid and you also think it reminds you of cafeteria waffle sticks, let me know. I would love to hear what you think that your tension issues look like down in the comment section. Or if you've never had a tension issue doing this particular braid and you've stumbled across my tutorial, share with everybody how you did that. For me, it just takes practice. Eventually, I kind of get the feel for how tight it needs to be pulled one way or the other. But if you've got a shortcut, I'm sure folks would love to hear about it down in the comments below. Generally speaking, I like to use a finger loop braid or some other multi-strand braid to lace up all of my dresses when I'm doing historical clothing. And Lucet normally only has the one, so it would have that light blue working thread that you see on the screen. The problem with that, with just one yarn being worked back and forth, it's incredibly quick, but it's also kind of weak. So if something rubs or braids that thread in just one spot, the entire thing's going to snap and come undone. Whereas when you're doing multiple strands going through here, 2, 4, 6, anything like that, and you've got two different yarns or 4 different yarns weaving this through, you've got the combined strength of all of them. So if something abrades through one section of your string, it's not going to cause your entire lace to snap and fail on you. Eventually you'll notice you might need to replace it, but hopefully you're not having too many issues with that up front. I have some laces of mine that I've been using for years, and others, it didn't last probably more than 2 or 3 months. So just kind of keep an eye on it. Good laces take a little bit of care, and I want to make sure that all of you are comfortable and happy in your clothing as you make these. Now that you've been watching me do this for about an inch or two, I'm going to save you watching me do this for about 2 yards worth. I probably didn't need them to be that long, but like I said, I wanted to be able to pre-lace my dress and just pull my laces tight. And having about 2 yards of it worked really well for that particular function. But to finish off your cord, just as a heads up, I usually do a clip of my main working color, so in this case the light blue, and then I'm going to keep working with that string as I normally would until it basically runs out, and then pull it through. So it might be a little bit harder the shorter that string gets, but just keep trying to weave it back and forth through those loops until you don't think you can get it through another loop again. There is the added complexity with this braid of, if I'm working enough of them, I really do need to be continuing to weave that piece of embroidery floss back and forth. Sorry, that floated off screen. So what you're not seeing, or not seeing terribly clearly, is I am pulling these loops off the fork and then threading that tail through them to tighten up the loop and close it. And there we go. We have a completed piece of 2-color Lucet to lace up any of your dressing needs that might have lacing. I use it as drawstrings on pouches as well, and a bunch of other just multi-use projects. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful for you. If it was, definitely give my video a like, comment down below with the project you want to use your Lucet cord in, and maybe consider subscribing if you also enjoy random costumes, geekery, and such.